everybody, this is Everything is Finally Gets Ruined. I am your host, Tristan, and with me, as always today, is our good friend, your neighbor, Hassan.
That's me.
Yep, everyone's neighbor, perpetually. And we are here to talk to you today about Avatar, James Cameron's wonderful 2 movies, soon to be like 7 or 8 of them.
Tristan.
Yeah, what?
Tristan.
Yeah,
Tristan.
what?
Hey, buddy, I need to check something real quick. You didn't do that thing where sometimes for a topic you go off and you do like way too much research on it, like a college credit course worth of it.
Yeah.
For our Silly 1 Hour podcast, right? You didn't do that much research about James Cameron's Avatar, right?
No, oh,
thank God.
No, I did though, but that's just my spare time. I could just do. It's something I like to do in my spare time is to research, things about movies and then like write like long dissertations on them. That is something I just enjoy doing. You can't stop me.
Slight problem.
Yeah,
You've researched the wrong Avatar.
I don't think I have.
When I said
Yeah.
I wanted to do an episode on the live action Avatar,
Right.
I meant the live action Avatar The Last Airbender.
Oh, the
Netflix
Shyamalan
TV series.
movie.
No, the Netflix TV series.
Are you sure it's not the Shyamalan movie? Because I've also got a dissertation on that.
Yeah. That is definitely a mistake. No one should spend that much time thinking about that movie.
Really? I did it.
It's a bad. That was a waste of your time. It's a bad movie.
Allow me to break down the 5 different points as to why this movie, the M. Night Shyamalan, Avatar, The Last Airbender movie is truly good.
Actually. No.
Yeah.
There's no defending that film. It is bad top to bottom.
What if I told you
the worst choreographed fight scenes I've maybe ever seen?
What if I told you it's a Dadaist masterpiece, Hassan?
It's definitely not Dadaist.
Or is it? Perhaps only time in my dissertation will tell.
It's definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Also, almost none of that knowledge will help you with the Netflix Avatar series.
The fucking... God damn it. I didn't watch it, so...
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the original, and I assume if it's an adaptation of the original one, it's mostly close, right?
Yeah, actually, mostly it is.
Mostly, okay. All right, so we're here talking to you today about the Netflix live action Avatar.
And we're about Netflix's 2024 Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action adaptation of... I'm just going to try and find the year here.
I did a terrible job of that. Anyway.
2005 animated series, Avatar: The Last Airbender, also known as Avatar: The Legend of Aang. I don't know who calls it that, but apparently it's also known by that.
Is it?
I don't know, apparently. That's what Wikipedia claims. I've never heard that.
I think I've heard of that, but I think that was like a working title.
It could be, who knows.
Legend of Aang. Sure. Yeah.
And so, right off the bat, I do want to say, overall, I did enjoy the show and think it does get a passing grade, just barely. It's like it's gonna graduate, but it's just barely getting its passing grade here. Because I have a lot of problems with this show, and I mostly think it comes down to, and I don't want to say it in the sense of like, oh, they don't understand the original. They don't get why these scenes were done or these things happen, blah, blah, blah. People often say that. I don't think that's the case. I don't think most media is as difficult to understand the reason that certain scenes or events happen, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no.
But I do want to say, going back actually another step. So I often hear people say they don't see the point in certain adaptations, or they don't think that certain adaptations should happen, that there's no justification for it, etc.
Sure.
I never agree with that. I think there is always merit to the idea of taking a piece of art from one medium and adapting it into another. But when I say that, I mean that in the sense of actually adapting, as in, taking something, and when you move it to the new medium, altering it so that it takes advantage of that other medium, but also so that you're not just doing a like for like, shot. And to kind of make this the simplest way I can say it, just taking a picture of a painting is not necessarily like pointless, but it's not the same as if, I'm going to paint this sunset versus I'm going to take a photo of this sunset. They're both of the same scene, but they're both going to evoke different emotions and both have different, strengths and bring forth different elements to the different mediums. And so exactly. I don't think that making a live action Avatar was ever a bad idea, like a lot of people say, or pointless, like people say, because you can do different things with the two different mediums between live action and animation.
Personally, I feel like, okay, I haven't watched the new show, so whatever. My opinion comes with a grain of salt. Personally, I feel like this specific adaptation isn't necessarily what was needed. I don't think that that adaptation is bad. I'm all for it. It's totally fine. I couldn't care less if you adapt the thing that I already like, even if it's bad. Yeah, whatever. I can still watch the thing that I enjoyed before. But I feel as if that all the hubbub leading up to this show was kind of like this, passion project. We got the two original creators, and then they got fired. And I kind of just feel as if they maybe should have wiped the slate a little bit and then started over again. I honestly feel like, if you're going to adapt this story, from what I could tell, they maybe needed to adapt it in a bit of a different way. Personally.
So you're 100% right on that. And for me, one of the best examples recently of a adaptation I think I personally at the time didn't think was going to work out was the One Piece show. And the reason that show works is it went, we can't just do those scenes one for one for a variety of reasons. Just, hey, this is One Piece is a bit more of a cartoony comedy animated show. So, hey, that's hard to do. But we're going to take the essence of those scenes, or we're going to take the important parts of this story, and we'll alter the story so that it works for what we're doing. And that's why that show really does work. Whereas in here, a lot of time when they make the changes, I just don't know that it really nails it. And to get into it, one of its biggest mistakes, and I've seen other people say this criticism, is that it does the opposite of you want. It does tell, don't show. So sometimes it's like the best scene I can point to,
TV show.
And that you can see a lot of other people with criticisms. Drew Gooden has a really good breakdown of some stuff.
Yeah,
I think he's pointed to this scene as well. There's a point where Aang goes, I know who I am. I'm Aang. I like to do this and play with time ice and these things.
No,
like, guys, what if you just showed us those things instead of having him say that? And that's kind of true throughout it. Where in the original, in season 1 of the animated show, we very much saw that Aang doesn't take his role as Avatar serious enough.
Point,
and that he is kind of coming to terms with this role, like when they go to Kyoshi Island, and hey, all these people admire him, and he lets it go to his head, and we just don't get that here.
No.
It's like, oh,
he's supposed. The one big thing I know about this show is that, like, so this show apparently adapts it in such a way where, like, they make Aang into a less conflicted character, where they basically, he's like, yeah, you know, I left the air temple just to clear my head, and then I got caught up in the storm, whatever.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, in the original cartoon, he's like, no, he got frightened by his sense of responsibility, didn't know how to handle it, and left away. Because he's 10 or 12. He's 12.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the reason why.
Or another example is, so that happens, right?
Yeah.
And then it's just time skip. Right? He sees that it's in the original, right? It's that time skip.
Yeah.
It's Sokka, Katara finding him in the ice, right? That's just how that works.
Yep.
And it's not until he actually goes to the Southern Air Temple and finds Gyatso's body that we fully come to terms with, the Fire Nation showed up and slaughtered them. Instead, the first episode in this live action series starts with about a 15-minute scene where it is that, like, Aang in the temple, they're talking, he goes away, and then just a big... No. It's that they show, like, this big battle between the airbenders and the firebenders. It's like, you didn't have to show us that, is the thing.
That's the wrong thing to show.
That doesn't...
I mean, like...
It felt like that was there because they were... They wanted to get into the action kind of quickly and make you go, like, no.
Yeah.
Hey, Tristan's friend who's never seen Avatar before, and Tristan swears it's good, but you're watching going like, I don't know, man, this just seems like it's something about a kid, and is this just... It's
a coming-of-age story, you idiot.
Yeah, like, is this...
Why are you my
just
friend?
Some dull coming-of-age story? And then it's like, oh, no, cool, man, sick action.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing, like, showing that fight is... Okay, I have no problem with showing that fight for the most part. Again, I have no problem with the adaptation idea of this. But the beauty of the scene, of that scene where he goes to the Southern Temple and he finds all the dead monks, and he, like, finds that the Fire Nation, like, really, like, they walked in and just fucked up the place. That part, he goes to the room where, like, Gyatso, like, is, and he killed, like, 20 or 30 guys. Like, this guy, what happened there? Like, that's the thing. You ask, what the hell happened here, and you'll never know. So it's up to your imagination to fill in those blanks, like it does for Aang. All he knows is the Fire Nation walked in and ruined his home. Granted, he, it was sort of by his devices.
Wow.
It
Victim
is.
blaming.
Well, it is and it isn't. See, but that's the point of the scene, though. Is he left, and, like, if he had stayed around, maybe that wouldn't have happened. But it probably still would have, though, because it's the Fire Nation. They
slaughtered him. Yeah.
That's the thing.
So it's common,
Exactly. At some point, it was going to happen anyway. But yeah, so that's the thing. It's that. Sometimes the show is to not show. Basically, when you not even tell, like, it's like, here's the aftermath, and you go like, wow, what happened here? And again, you don't get that answer.
It's very ironic that I know I've harped on about this before, that one of the things I think kids media needs to do more of is, trust that kids will understand things, trust that they, will.
And they will.
Have the maturity to be entertained by and drawn in by scenes that very often it feels like, kids cartoons go, no, we can't, they're kids, we got to make this kid friendly. It's very ironic. The original cartoon for kids did that Whereas the live action show that's more targeting adults is like, well, we can't trust that, adults will get these new. We just have to lay these things bare. It's like, oh man, that sucks.
Okay,
why would you do that?
To be fair, I honestly think that that is not
yeah.
the worst mentality to have, because
Yeah.
I look, here's the thing. There are plenty of kids who would totally get a plot line like that, and that wouldn't be a problem. But I think there are more adults out there who, come home just drained after work or whatever. They want to turn the brain off and watch something on Netflix or TV or whatever. And it's Avatar. It's like, oh, it's a fun action show with some martial arts. All right, good enough. I think that's usually what a lot of these shows and movies go for. Because, the audience is just there to shut down and let it happen to them.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It does remind me, I saw, there's an incredible headline from The Gamer recently, which was, the politics of Amazon's Fallout are so explicit, only a gamer could miss them. So, you're right. Don't trust adults. They're idiots.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, yeah. And I'm not saying that every single one of them is like that. I'm not saying that every person out there is turning the brain off.
That's fair.
The average common denominator, viewer is doing that. So,
but kind of going along with some of the problems of how I don't quite think they got the adaptation element of it right. So, original cartoon. Sorry, let me just look it up here. So, season 1, 20 episodes, 22 minutes apiece, right?
Yep.
Instead, here we're going for, prestige TV. So they're closer to hour-long episodes. And we get 8 of them. That is problematic.
It is, yes.
That the original cartoon series, very much individual episodes, had individual goals and purposes. So it'd be, here is I need to look it up to remember specifically some of the
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, here's the episode where Jet first shows up. And the entire point of that episode is so that the gang can come to understand that, hey, there are people who are on the right side of this battle, but can still take things too far and to an extreme so that, they come to that understanding. Great. That works in that one episode. The problem with this show, where it then goes, okay, we need to have those scenes in these hour-long episodes, is it means that they end up trying to bring in multiple story points and sort of tie them and weave them together. So, for example, episode 3, Omashu, which I think is probably the worst episode of the season. But what it does is it combines the episode where they initially get to Omashu.
Yep.
It combines the Jet episode, and it combines the Inventor, the one where they were originally in the air temple with the kid in the wheelchair that could fly.
I heard this stuff.
Yeah. So it has all 3 of those episodes as this one interweaved story. And so it's just super messy, where it just feels like way too much is happening in weird ways. There's no specific things that we are developing the single characters. Like, it's trying to tell all these things while you also have, Zuko and his uncle's story being told at the same time.
Of course, yeah.
And it's just all this stuff happening. We also get to see a bit of Ozai. And it's just like, this just doesn't feel focused. It just feels like you went, well, we have to tell these story elements. We have to bring in these characters so that other parts of this plot and this world make sense. It's just a mess because of it. This is a bad episode.
I can see a world where this actually does work, because, speaking of, those 3 elements together, Boomy, the Inventor, and then Jet, they do sort of intermingle in a very specific way all around the war. So I do see a world where that does work together. I do. However, I'm not sure if you're saying it's done kind of lazy and bad, then it's probably done lazy and bad.
I don't want to say lazy. It's just it's clunky. It just doesn't.
Sure.
It doesn't feel like it properly. It doesn't feel like there's a proper reason to have these three meshed together, like it would if you were doing an original story.
Yeah.
And I can't help that I have this previous knowledge. Maybe if I was coming to it having never watched the original cartoon, I wouldn't have that complaint. But coming to it from that, to me, I can just go, no, this just feels like, well, we have to get these things in here, and it needs to be one episode. So it's one episode now.
Yeah, I can see where that perspective comes into play as well. It's like, hey, these are kind of important factors. It's all one thing now. Sorry. Yeah, I can see the point there too. That part sucks, but I can see where it could work.
Yeah, or there's another one, or two episodes really. So episodes 5 and 6, Spirited Away and Masks, where it's basically them doing the Hey Bye, the sort of spirit there. The Crescent Island, where Aang has to go visit the previous Avatar Roku.
Yeah.
It's also the
semi-Roku
Blue Spirit, I think it was called, where Aang gets captured, and then it's also Aang actually going to the spirit world and meeting the face stealer. I forget its name. And it's these two episodes are all just kind of one flowing story plot, one into the other, into the other, into the other.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, it sort of works, and on the other hand, it's a little bit almost video gamey, where it's like, oh, you have to go do this activity to unlock this door so that you can raise this elevator so that you can then go fight the boss. And so it's just a little bit like, oh, it's not that it doesn't work. It's just that it feels like you went, well, we have to tie these things all one into the other.
Yeah.
Because we're not breaking this down into more singular stories and episodes.
Right.
And so it just suffers a little bit from that. I think these are pretty decent episodes. There's some actual good character stuff here.
Sure, yeah.
But the overall story, it's just problematic. And this is bigger than just this Avatar show. But it's something that I like Prestige TV quite a lot. I am getting very tired.
Prestige TV, Hassan.
But I am getting very tired that Prestige equals hour long.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, you can't just have, a 22-minute or a half-hour episode. That's not Prestige. It's like, no, you can have singular, more self-contained stories. It's okay. That can still be Prestige. There's nothing wrong with having things being shorter and more constrained. So
sometimes when you work within the constraints of a running time, you come out with some of the best television you possibly could make. Yeah, that just happens. It's
I just, it's bigger than this, but it's definitely something that I wish this show had gone, oh yeah, hey, we'll play around with the time a little bit more, but yeah, we're mostly going to do shorter episodes, kind of maintain the similar pacing and whatever. I mean, going back to One Piece, that worked for that. That was also 8 or 10 hour-long episodes. That's very different than the One Piece anime. Although I think there, it does work a little bit better for One Piece than Avatar because, One Piece tends to have more of these specific story arcs, and it's a lot easier to kind of take, like most animes, it's a lot easier to take chunks of episodes and go, yeah, you can take these, kind of however many, these 4 to 10 episodes and smush that all into 1 or 2 hour-long episodes and go, well, yes, this is this story plot point.
Yeah.
Whereas, with the original cartoon Avatar: The Last Airbender, that's not the case. Those episodes didn't as directly flow one into another. True. Speaking of, slight complaint, but because they also do it this way, passage of time is a little bit hard to get a grasp on with this.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because it just doesn't feel like, no, but what I mean is, in the original, because they're standalone stories in between the episodes, it could feel like, it could just be a throwaway line of Sokka just, mentioning, hey, we've been flying for almost 2 days straight. Let's stop in a village and stock up on supplies. And you just don't get that here as often, so it doesn't
weird
give you that passage of time. Yeah. I would also say, part of it too is because the original is a cartoon, cartoons can be a little bit zippier in how things happen. Whereas live action, you have to have, lingering shots a little bit more. You have to focus on facial features. So dialogue generally can't come out as quickly. You can't as easily just sort of jump cut between two characters. So you generally have to have them both in the scene talking to each other. So this does also, not cover as much as the original. There's, I'm sure if somebody was to sort of count it out and go, okay, well, the original was 20 episodes. This live action is probably only like 15, 16 episodes, something like that. You're missing certain scenes in that those help to spread it out a little bit more and give you that better passage of time and make it feel like this is a real trek to go from the southern water tribe to the northern water tribe.
So my favorite way to show the passage of time in a passive way,
a clock.
That's actually a very active way of showing. It doesn't matter. My favorite way of showing that stuff, and the Avatar cartoon does this a lot, is when they go to stock up on supplies and their money is low.
Yeah.
Low money means time has passed without them getting more money. It's a very one-to-one of like, oh, yeah, okay, we're low on supplies. We can't afford this. We got to take a job. That's where the action is. Sure, that's the plot. But what that also does is establish that the last time they got money was for this thing, and now they are low on cash, and they are low because of like a few days have passed without them having to do that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's just not here. Because to break it down, so episode 1 and kind of its own, for lack of a better term, standalone episode. 2 Warriors standalone, but then Omashu and Into the Dark is 1.
Yep.
Spirited Away and Mask is 1, and then The Northern Legends is 1. So you basically only get 5 separate kind of like time. I don't want to say periods, but like five separate times that we are peering into what is happening.
It sounds like it feels like a very short amount of time has gone through. Whereas
that's what it ends up feeling like. It just feels like, okay, it doesn't, we're not getting that sense of them hopping from here to here to here to here, not necessarily slowly, but getting these very clear demarcations of roughly where they are in the world and how they're progressing towards it. We're just kind of,
this show is also released in like the big old like Netflix bucket dump, right?
All 8 episodes at once.
Okay,
that's a whole other conversation.
That also
we need to stop doing that.
We have to. But here's the thing: that also lends itself into audiences not knowing how much time has passed as well. When you watch a show all in one chunk like that, basically time can pass in the show, but you'll never really notice because you're just watching like, okay, in this season, let's say maybe a whole month goes by. Sure. But for you, the viewer, it's only been like a day or two. Maybe if you watch it all in one shot, it's only 8 episodes or whatever it is. Doesn't matter. So you won't actually understand the passage of that time. However, if it is airing weekly, you will understand more, readily that like, oh, this takes a longer period of time to get through because physically for me, it's taken a few months because it's a weekly show. It's got 22 episodes. And because of that, I understand that they have taken a month of their time in the show to get to this point as well. You see, there's all these little tricks of the trade that, can be applied in a thoughtful manner that, they just don't do anymore because of the streaming service bucket dump they like to call it these days. It just goes, here's the show, here's all of it, enjoy your slops.
Yeah, I can't find. I was going to make a joke about the ending of Pantheon with how much time passed on that, but I can't find what the exact.
I guess to be fair, they broke the mold in that one because they they was like, fuck it, 5,000 years, fuck it.
Oh, yeah.
20 years. What is happening? Show. 20 years.
We just talked about that.
10,000.
No, I'm with you. I think certain shows it's okay to do the bucket dump. For example,
can be,
I always, because I'm big into F1. I have friends who are big into F1, so every season we do the Netflix Drive to Survive series. We binge it, and that works for that, right? If that did it weekly, it'd be not as good. So I think there are certain shows that more kind of like reality TV.
Yeah.
A bucket dump for those works because you don't. There's just less savoring for that. But I think anything drama wise, any mystery, anything that's going to have intrigue, drip feed it. Give us time to actually digest, savor it, have those conversations, not have stuff spoiled immediately.
I mean, some of my favorite things that are airing right now. I guess potential spoilers for the Finding Awards. I don't know. So right now, my two favorite things I'm watching that are on Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever, it's the new Delicious in Dungeon anime and X-Men 97, and those are coming out weekly with episodes, and that means I get to digest this shit.
Like. One thing I'll say is I have seen Delicious in Dungeon fan art go from like this to boom, up like this and maintain that. I think if they dumped that, you wouldn't get that.
No.
And I think that's true of this. We already know where the story is going, but there are conversations that could have been had around certain episodes and certain moments and how they did it that it's now just you have to have all those conversations once. An example of this, so part of this, but let's get into some of the character stuff. I think the actors do a pretty good job overall. In particular, I would say. Sorry, I need to go back up to the cast here. Dallas Liu as Prince Zuko, the stand-up.
I've heard he was really good. Yeah,
he's really good. I think Paul Sun-Hyung Lee is decent as Uncle Iroh. I don't quite love how they portray the character here. He's missing a little bit of the like wisity of the character that was originally there, but
sure.
There's a scene that they do that's really good. That is, and occasionally there's a couple of scenes like this where they add in more backstory to the characters than we originally got, and not just the main cast, but talk about another instance. But in this case, there's a really good one where it is Iroh or Zuko before he's been banished, before he's been injured. But it's his uncle back in the Fire Nation after his son Liu Ten has died. And so his son's corpse is here, and he's kind of just in a chair to the side as people are, coming along, giving their condolences, saying whatever. And he's kind of just, his son has died. Like, he's just kind of this husk of a man sitting there. And so Ozai comes over and he's just like, brother, you should be proud. Your son, sacrificed himself nobly for the Fire Nation, and he will be remembered for ages. Like, yes, thank you, brother. And then Zuko is just there, and he's like, yes, uncle, you must be very proud of your, my cousin, your son, blah, blah, blah. And he goes to walk away, and then he stops for a second. He just turns around and he's like, uncle, I want you to have this. And I believe it's a pie show piece. He's like, Liu Ten gave this to me. Mm-hmm. He said it was a lucky item and that he didn't need it. And he was right. He didn't need it. Liu Ten was the most talented and the most impressive firebender and soldier I'd ever seen. But I know that you need this now with what you're going through. And then he just sits down next to his uncle while he's doing that. And then they're playing the Leaves on the Vine song from the episode where he in the original where Iroh goes and visits Liu Ten's grave in the Earth Nation. And it's like, oh, this is a really good, touching moment that is genuinely well done, and them using Leaves on the Vine is a fantastic way to use that song without going like, hey, check it out, it's us. Like they do that with the cabbage vendor, the buy cabbages, and fine, whatever, that's a goofy thing. But like them doing it here is this actually really well done, impressive moment.
Nice.
But that conversation, because they dropped it all at once, you don't get that separate from everything else. You just get that as like, oh, that conversation has to happen with every other conversation you have to have about the show, every other thing you like, that you complain about, that you think was done well, was done wrong, etc. Whereas, hey, if they drip fed this, people would probably go, oh man, that moment was so good, we need to talk about how well they did that moment. I have complaints about the rest of this show. I don't know how, hey, maybe they don't nail the ending of this show, but man, that scene was good. But that conversation doesn't happen, because instead you have this conversation about 8 hours worth of content, and that's just one blip on it. Kind of like how we're having to do in this podcast, right? Hey, if we were going episode by episode, that would be a bigger conversation. That would get a bigger rise. But when you smush it all together like this, it's just this one instance, and then you have to move on.
I mean, imagine this if I did the Great Simpsons rewatch all in one chunk. I just watched 35 seasons of it. Let's discuss all 30. It's impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, that's an impossible task on its own, but it's a really hyperbolic example. But you're right, because trying to discuss this show, you have to kind of like discuss it as a one big thing. You can't just go episode to episode. Okay, there is a podcast that is just basically what we're referring to, which is going episode to episode through the Avatar series. It's called Braving the Elements, and I can't remember who's in it, but I know it's Dante, not Dante, the guy who played Zuko.
Dante Basco.
Dante Basco,
yes.
And I can't remember her name. Janet Verney. There we go. Janet Verney and Dante Basco basically do this podcast, and it's them going episode to episode and kind of like getting on guest stars and this kind of stuff. And that's what you want from, like, that's what you should be able to do with this kind of a show. And I'm like, a part of me, now that like certain things are airing, now that like Delicious in Dungeon, the anime is airing, I kind of wish I jumped on that before and started making like a episode to episode podcast about that, because it's really, really good. Or for instance, X-Men 97, that is some peak X-Men shit. And I'm here for it. And like, that's airing weekly, and I same deal.
Dumped it. It just it would take away from it.
Have you watched X-Men 97 at all?
Nah.
Okay.
Honestly, I probably won't.
I think you should. First off, here, I'm gonna say episode 5 just aired last week, and that's where I'm up to at this point. I haven't watched the new episode. Let's just say episode 5 is so good. I watched it twice in a row. And it's some weird equating Genosha with some Red Wedding shit.
Wait, Genosha shows up in this?
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. So it's that.
Look,
so imagine though if we had dumped all 8 episodes or all 10 episodes that aired for that show.
Yeah.
And then like this got lost in the middle. This like truly amazing piece of TV.
Yep.
Yeah.
It would suck.
It would suck.
Just quickly before we get back to Avatar,
Yep.
There's only one way you're going to convince me to watch it. Does Strong Guy show up?
I'm
not watching it.
Not yet. Here's the thing. I have hopes because like they've like background dropped.
He's the only X-Men that's ever mattered.
I'll put this out there. If Multiple Man can show up as a cameo, I don't see why Strong Guy can't show up. Yeah. In a dance scene, no less.
There's some other good backstory stuff. So one of them, when Sokka is stuck in the spirit world, when they're doing the whole kind of like Heibai village thing. Mm-hmm. Him and Katara, they get stuck in the spirit world. So Katara, she sees her mother getting killed by the Fire Nation when they come.
That's where she is.
Now,
okay,
we've already seen that. It's a good scene. But the more interesting one is Sokka's, which what we get is he's seeing this scene where it's his dad and his dad's
the rock
friend,
dodging thing. Yes, we're dodging.
Bato and Hakoda, that's their names. No, so it's not. It's sort of that scene, but not quite. They change it a little bit where it's Sokka and his dad's Bato had to help him, and his dad's just like, all right, well, go grab this so we can do this party for you passing. And he goes, but then he's like, oh wait, I need to go back and grab this. But his dad and Bato come out and they're talking about him, and his dad's just like, Bato, you shouldn't have helped it, like. He hasn't really passed the test now. He's not truly a man because you interject. He's like, oh, come on, cut him some slack. This was some of the worst, like, choppiest waters we've ever seen when it happened. He's still a man. And it's like, oh, that's a really good moment. That gives you some insight into, Sokka's sort of
kind of like that
mental space and why... the way that he acted as sort of, the protector of the village and all that. That's good. There's also lore-wise, they occasionally have some good moments that they fill in. And apparently this one came from the comics, but Avatar Kuruk, who was the previous water avatar, so there's a moment where he is talking to Aang when they're in the north. And at this point, Aang talked to Kyoshi. Kyoshi took over. He talked to Roku in Crescent Island. And so he goes there to Kuruk, and the Fire Nation's coming. He's like, oh, I know. Hey, these other avatars, when I'm in their, sort of special spiritual connection place, they can take over my body. You do that here. And it's Kuruk explaining, no, I couldn't do that because... during my time, everybody thought I was a failure of an avatar because they couldn't see what I was doing, which was fighting dark spirits, right? People can't see the spirits. I could. And he kind of shows him this infection. He's like, I can't take you over. My spirit got corrupted, and it's why I died very young. And people think I'm a failure. You have to do this yourself. It's like, oh, that's actually some good world story lore.
I like
it's
that,
not original to this, but I think them adding it is still an interesting choice.
Yes.
And it also sort of closes out, a potential, I'm going to call it internet loophole, where
Internet
jerk faces argue about unnecessary things. So, there's good writing in the show.
Yeah.
There are these good world building elements. It's why there are these just mixed moments. Again, there's some great moments with Zuko and Iroh. I'm gonna call them out on this. They did not give us the scene where when Uncle Iroh gets captured because he was in the hot springs and he's just in his underwear with the slave chains after. They didn't do that. Cowards. The cowards at Netflix
absolute
didn't
cowards.
do it. I'm disappointed in them.
That's it's okay. The reason why that's so good is because they got this guy who is the Dragon of Ba Sing Se. They capture him. He's not in his armor. He's not prepared for anything. He is literally naked, and somehow is able to escape them and cow them. God damn it!
It's because he's the Dragon of the West.
It's true. Yeah, true enough. That is why Dragon of Ba Sing Se. Is it the Dragon of Ba Sing Se?
I believe it's Dragon of the West.
You're right. Yes.
It's the I forget something of Ba Sing Se. You're
yeah,
right. They
had
that name. I forget what it was now.
The captor of Ba Sing Se, something like that. But he didn't do it.
Like that, yeah,
something like that. But yeah, like it's because he's that, and like but he's just an old little man now. It's like I guess you're right. And it's suckers.
Occasionally they make some weird changes. For example, the Cave of Two Lovers. That scene is now just Katara and Sokka. It's like, it is not it's not in a romantic way. It's not incestuous.
Okay.
But it's just a real life.
You gotta be careful there.
Why did you still use the Cave of Two Lovers if you're not going to have two lovers in it, guys?
Yeah, seriously.
Literally the point of that cave was Aang and Katara to be like, hey, they got feeling. It's just like, okay, sometimes you make some weird choices about these changes.
The point is they kiss and then the lights go up and... you can't do that with Sokka.
Well, they almost kiss. They don't actually kiss.
I can't remember if they almost or if they...
No, I believe they almost. I don't think they actually kiss.
It's kind of implied. There's it goes dark.
Oh,
so
it's definitely implied, yeah. But
did they or did they not?
I forget. Yeah, maybe they do, but...
I would assume they did.
Yeah.
That's why the lights go on.
All right, so... trying to think of the way to word this. All right, Tristan.
Yes.
What's the one defining characteristic of the Avatar?
You mean of Aang?
No, like the Avatar, not Aang, the Avatar.
Yeah, okay. The main defining characteristic is his control of all four elements. I would say.
What if we only ever had him bend one element this entire season? Aang does no water bending in this season,
but...
and I am very worried that season 2 is just going to start with them going, "Wow, Aang, your training the last couple weeks have been great. You're practically a water bending master now." Be like, wait, really?
Probably. I mean that sounds about right. They may have missed the point of the Avatar. Unless
the original cartoon, every episode starts with the opening line: "The Avatar, master of all four elements."
Yeah.
Nope. Only airbending.
Unless what they're doing is saying the Avatar is more of a master of the spiritual realm and like the Avatar states.
They literally give that exact same spiel. It literally happens. They
then they screwed up real bad.
I believe it's the grandmother does it as like a literal saying that and explaining it to the village and Aang and Katara and all of them. It's kind of a silly. It's one of those show don't tell moments that they should have done, but instead they did tell don't show. Yeah, it's weird, but that does bring us into probably the last thing I want to talk to, even though I don't want to end on a downer, but the action.
Great.
It's decent, is what I'll say. Its biggest problem is goes back to Netflix, a bunch of cowards. The original Avatar, very clearly, influenced by, a love letter to
Yeah.
Hong Kong Chinese martial arts films.
Wuxia, etc.
Yes.
A lot of
it has
Red Theater.
Yeah, but it has very fast flowing combat,
Yeah.
very acrobatic aerial.
Mm-hmm.
Some people would say, well, you can't do that in, real life the same way that you did in the show, where, they are
No, you could.
they are doing, the levels of kind of, airbending and flipping around and all that. And to that I say, oh, so you stopped watching Hong Kong action and Chinese action films in like the 80s and didn't see the wild stuff they were doing in the 90s.
You see, naysayer. There's a little movie in 1999 that came out called The Matrix, where they did a bunch of wire work used in Hong Kong action films.
Yeah.
That could do that. What about Christian Tucker and Dragon, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would even go beyond that. There are films, where people are literally doing martial arts and like shooting out fire from their fists, or summoning down mighty, hurricane winds and all that.
I mean, if you watch Iron Monkey, yeah, you get that shit. So yeah.
Yeah.
But like
there's tons of that. But
Hero.
Here it's a little bit, I don't quite think they're going for grounded, but it's a little bit slower and stiffer. And in some ways, I get it, because you are dealing with young actors, and hey,
but
it's understandably a little bit difficult to have them be at that level of martial arts prowess and physicality.
Now, I mean, you say that, but that's when you should start that stuff is young. Like,
well, yeah, I just mean in terms of like, I get it of, hey, it's very hard to be a decent actor and also a decent martial artist.
Oh,
so,
yeah, that is
hey,
true. That's
I get it.
Hard,
If you're dealing with, these younger kids, it's going to be difficult to have them do that level of acrobatics.
You're right, yes.
I do think, though, part of it also comes down to it, being that level of prestige TV, and that there's a story Michelle Yeoh tells.
Do tell.
Which James Bond film was she in? I forget.
Tomorrow Never Dies.
Sure. She tells a story about how, when she got cast in it, he brought over like these 3 or 4 guys that did Hong Kong action films. She's like, okay, yeah, we should have a moment like this for my character, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so like they come over, she introduces them to whoever, the stunt coordinators, the set manager, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, I do these introductions, and then I have to go off, I have to do makeup, I have to do this other scene, whatever. And I come back, an hour and a half later, and they're kind of all just like sitting around lazy. She's like, guys, like, what are you doing? You need to, like, this is a chance for a big break. This is this big, serious Hollywood movie. Like, you need to be, showing them that you're serious and do this. And they're like, no, we've been good to go for roughly an hour now. And she's like, because these guys, they had gotten, photos of like the set and drawings and that, and they had asked questions before they even got there. So they show up and they're like, okay, yeah, no, we could do this like this and this like this. And she's like, they had already spent all this time figuring out, it's all choreographed in their head. They're good to go. They're like, we're waiting on these Americans are the lazy guys. We're good to go. Like, we've been waiting on them. They need to be faster.
Yeah.
And that's, look, there are problems with the Southeast Asian work model of them overworking and not spending time fit. Like, I am not trying to praise that part, but what I will say is, when it comes to the ability to choreograph fight scenes and to get those things done a lot more quickly than American cinema, I also think that is a factor here of just, hey, this is American cinema, and like choreographing these things takes, so much longer than it should, that I'm sure that is a factor here, that, hey, you can't do awesome, hyper fast raid stuff because you're just not dealing with it's two things. I think one is that's just generally not how stuff is quite as choreographed. I mean, you certainly get good stuff. John Wick has some fantastic
Beautiful
fast
movies,
combat
yes.
flowing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. There's other action films like that, but it's just generally not quite how that works, and I think that's a factor here. And so that was just disappointing watching this. That you just don't get as fast flowing, and B, it doesn't feel as much that each bending style is its own, oh, you look at that and you go, okay, yeah, no, this is, the whole wuxia thing of like, oh, this is crane style, this is monkey style, all that, the original Avatar series felt like it had that you looked at and you went, yeah, water bending looks very different than fire bending, than air bending, etc. It's like, oh, it's good enough in the show. It's just disappointing that it's not what I wish it was.
Yeah, that's true. Because, the point of the martial arts demonstrations in in Avatar, the original cartoon, is you have, waterbending is Tai Chi plus a few other things. Earthbending is Tiger Crane style. Firebending is eagle and dragon, obviously. And airbending is bagua. Those were the main influences of how those martial arts moved and looked. So when they had to go and get reference material, they could focus on, hey, do we know someone who does bagua? We got to do this this airwalking thing. For instance, in the original cartoon, there's that scene where Aang puts his hand in a knife format into the back of Zuko and follows him around and keeps him out of the way.
Yeah,
that's a bagua move.
Yeah, so, there's nothing that fluid, unfortunately.
That's really unfortunate because the martial arts in the original cartoon are really good, especially if you are a martial arts lover like we are, and you can those styles. You can point out oh, that's that thing they do. If they don't do that in the Netflix show, then they kind of lost some of that interest for me.
It lost some of that charm. Just we should wrap up. But again, overall, it's a passing grade, but it's a barely passing grade. I'll be interested to see what they do. So they've confirmed there's 2 more seasons. I don't know if that means each season, is going to be like the original. So season 2 is Book of Earth, season 3 Book of Fire, we're done. Or if they'll try and stretch it out. I don't think they could, because these kids will age. This is prestige TV.
I'll be mention that.
Shocked if the second season comes out in under a year. That would be just that's just not how quickly this sort of TV moves these days. So, they gotta be as quick as they can, but I still don't think this show will be done in under 4 years.
Yeah, so the other option they have, just quickly, is to drag it out a little bit. I think here's the thing. You're right, because these kids are going to age, and they've already talked about that in interviews. Now, I'm pretty sure what they're going to do, because what you mentioned before is them doing a time jump, and now Aang knows waterbending. That would account for, what's his name? Gordon Cormier getting a bit older and a bit older looking, because, he's been training with waterbending in between seasons. And now could show it off. I think if it were me and I was working with that constraint and we needed a way to kind of smooth the edges, that's maybe what I would do.
The problem I have with that is that only works if you had already established in season that, hey, this is going to be a lengthy journey. Time is going to, progress more slowly story-wise.
Yeah.
They haven't established that, so that would all of a sudden just be weird to be like, hey, here's season 1. It takes place within
2 years later,
a few weeks, and then it's 2 years later, and then to do that, potentially again that like here's season 2. It takes place in a couple weeks. Season 3, 2 years later. Again, like that would just feel
weird. Yes.
Yeah, weird, and I just don't think it would work.
You're right.
Because at that point, why even bother having them be this young? At that point, you might as well go, they're all 17, and then it doesn't matter if they're 24 by the time we're done. We can still pretend that they're only 17.
Yeah, you can get away with that. Yep.
Yeah, so I don't think they'll do that. I'll be interested to see what, like, hey, they got to add in Toph. How are you going to handle that? Hey, off the top of my head, I can only think of one instance of a character with I don't want to say serious disability, but a disability that affects the story and affects how the TV show has to portray them, done to a point that it blew me away, and that was Only Murders in the Building, with the I can't think of his name, but the mute actor who has to do sign mute, deaf, who has to do sign language.
He's really good. He's really good. Oh yeah.
Are you going to do Toph that well? Hard to say. I mean, Toph was always a joke character, right? Always doing the can't see. You're like, oh, that's funny. It feels like season 2 would struggle a lot. Like the way that season 1 got condensed and the parts they cut out worked fine in season 1.
Yeah, sure.
Season 2 is when you get a little bit more into we are actually having to progress the plot of things along, like the events happening in the world and how it impacts the greater world. Because really, other than the finale in the North, most of what they're doing in season 1 doesn't have much of an impact on the wider world. Season 2 has a lot more of that. So
quite a bit, yes.
It'll be interesting to see how it handles. I'll watch it. I wouldn't quite say I'm looking forward to it, but I wouldn't say I'm dreading it. I'm mostly neutral on it first season, sure, I'll watch more of it, but I'm kind of maybe just doing it out of obligation.
That sounds like it's the case.
But I guess I'll end it on, if you're a fan of the original series,
right?
I don't necessarily recommend it, but I'm also not sitting here saying like, oh, it ruined it. Oh, it's terrible. I think if you want to watch it or you have any interest in watching it, do it. It's worth your time. It has some good writing, some good moments, some good acting.
Sure.
Just don't expect it to be One Piece. My new benchmark.
Your new benchmark is One Piece.
It truly is.
I mean, that's the thing. I've heard you've said as much, and I've heard as much about that One Piece live action show. Is that it is the new benchmark for adapting a cartoon in live action. It has to be that good. Too fucking bad if it's not.
Yeah, I mean,
like
once
this
you're
is
done
not.
Since rewatch, we'll have you do the One Piece anime watch, and then you can watch the live action.
No. Anyway.
Oh yeah, no, it's happening, buddy. Don't worry.
It's not.
There's only 1,100 episodes so far.
No, I can't do that. Look, man.
And like 18 movies.
Only 18? No, that's correct. Well, okay. I actually kind of figured there'd be more. That's a lot of One Piece. I'm not going to watch that. Anyway.
You are.
I am not. I don't have as much interest in One Piece anyway. I wouldn't do it justice is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Find me a show that I could do justice, and I'll watch that after the Simpsons rewatch.
All right. Well, why don't you tell people where to find us?
Go to our Twitter page, which is @EIFNAR. Go there and yell at us about how much you loved or hated the new Avatar show. Tell me how bad this telecard is. I actually put little effort into this. I'm surprised it got... Anyway... go to our Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. leave a review, tell your friends, go to YouTube, like, subscribe kind of thing, push the buttons that make the little lights show up. Yeah. Like light bright.
That sounds right, sure.
Or like a Fisher Price like pop up.
Look, I've
That's
never
kinda
touched the YouTube, so I don't know how it works.
That's kind of how it is these days. Actually, you press a button, it's got a little animated Giphy that plays when you.
Oh, buddy, that's
Yeah.
a whole different conversation about how psychologists did analysis and found out that, that bright lights and flashing stuff evokes.
Yeah.
If kids are exposed to that early on, they then become gambling addicts. So then gambling systems now push that to kids.
Cool. Glad
Yeah.
that kids' toys are like that with the Fisher. You press the buttons and yeah.
Yeah, something.
Anyway, press the buttons and make the gambling happen. Go to our friends at DJDane.com. That's the guy that does our music, DJDane.com. Like I said, go there, listen to his great tunes, and you got to break it to him. He's the avatar one way or the other. There's no escaping that. Yeah.
I need to book a flight to BC then.
Yep, where he's at. Yep. Because, yeah.
Need to stop him and protect my kingdom.
Oh, the Fire Nation?
Yeah.
Ah. That's fair. You gotta kill that kid.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Although he's like our age, so not a kid per se, but
That probably that just means if he's anything like me, he's going to be easier to kill because, injuries take way longer to heal than that.
yeah, I guess so. I guess going into the Avatar when he's a kid, you either gotta get him like really young, like 2 or 3, or when he's like much older, when he's like in his 30s.
Yeah, because like 18-year-old
my sciatica.
be like, I twisted my ankle, but whatever, it's healed in like the next day.
Yeah.
34-year-old me's like, I twisted my ankle, and a month later, it still kind of hurts. What? Why?
I twisted my knee a few weeks ago, and it's still a little squishy. So
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. He's gonna be way easier to kill now.
yeah, it's true. Anyway, that's it for our show. Tune in next time for another evidently episode of Everything is Ruined. See ya.
See.
Hey.